Hi. Can you hear me? Press unmute. Unmute. Okay. All right. I think I can hear you now.
Can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Yes. You know what? I'm just trying to see now. Can you just sit? I just want to check your position.
Okay.
There's a bit of, see, when you come close, I can see you properly.
Oh, I'm a bit far.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let me move my desk.
I think the light that's reflecting at the top, that's creating problems.
Oh, the light.
Yeah, there's a light that's reflecting on your white roof. All right, so it gives me a bit of trouble. So just let's see.
Just close it off. It becomes too dark though.
Okay, let me see. Just sit. Yeah, let's talk. Just say something.
Can you see me now?
I can see you.
No, in terms of the light, is it better, or I see it a bit? It's a bit dark.
It's a bit dark, yeah. Maybe just open
switch on the light.
Yeah, please. Okay, do so.
No. I think the light has made it worse.
No, I think it's fine. You know what? If I could have that door, there's a brown door at the back. If I can have that being your back, you know? Like,
as a backdrop.
Yeah, as a backdrop, because then with your black top, it contrasts nicely. Yeah.
No.
Just sit there. Let's see.
It's not.
No, I can see you. I can see you. Just sit still. Yeah, nice stuff at the back there. I don't know, it's the kitchen or something. There's some interesting stuff appearing there. Yeah, it's nice.
Is it better now?
Okay, just say something.
Is it better?
Yeah, no. When it's your turn to talk, then I can see you properly. Yeah, so it will be fine. Yeah, it will be fine. All right, we have 5 minutes. I just need 2 minutes to just correct something. So you can use the 5 minutes to meditate.
No, I've done my meditating this morning.
Okay, all right then. So I'm just gonna focus a little bit here. You don't mind it?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
I don't know. You sure? Sorry, the light is not disturbing that light, because I keep on seeing it reflecting. Okay.
As long as you keep you see, it's only when you move your head, then it disturbs me. So maybe try and move a little bit away from that light, just the angle at the back, just the direction. No, the direction.
Okay. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna, the reflection is just, it's not going to, it's actually hitting my eyes.
Just your position. Just move your position.
Okay.
That light here.
Yeah, I can. I'm also.
We've got 2 minutes.
Is it not better now?
Yeah, good. Good.
Yeah, I think it's better.
All right, we've got 2 minutes.
Okay.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen who have joined us for this conversation this afternoon. Joining us via various social media, channels on Facebook, on YouTube, and also via the Dr. Fundi channel. Today, we will be discussing issues relating to nutrition. I know a lot of people have been challenged during this lockdown period. Some of them have turned into fridge raiders, even if they're not hungry, but they just go and get whatever in the fridge. We've seen also in social media so many other people, showcasing their skills on how to bake fat cooks and also mukhodu. So, but with the extension of the lockdown, meaning another almost 20 days to go, I'm not sure if people can continue with that type of diet. So we saw it necessary then that we bring a professional, somebody who knows a lot about matters of nutrition, so that she can be able to share with us information that is practical, information that is useful, so that by the time we go back to our normal lives, we don't have a bigger problem on how to, deal with his budget, and the beer bellies. Okay, there's no beer, but challenges with weight and also just poor management of chronic conditions like diabetes and and other related conditions. So today our guest is Ms. Zikhona Spellman. She's a qualified dietitian who obtained her BSc in dietetics from UKZN. She is also a member of the Association of Dietetics in South Africa. So whatever she says here, it's not fake news, because she is registered with a statutory body. And if she says anything that is not right, there's somewhere where you can go and complain. She is also an author of a book that's called Nutrition Demystified. She's also a founder of a well-being academy. She'll tell us a little bit more about what that is. But beyond, dietetics, she's also an HR practitioner. She's also a facilitator. She's been involved in a lot of research. She collaborated with international people and worked with Wits University around some research on iron deficiency anemia. She is a public speaker. And I think the last one that I like most is the fact that she worked very closely with the ministry, the SAPS, with Begitele, Minister Begitele. I'm not sure if it's now or when he was still a commissioner, but they had a national lifestyle and wellness program. I'm sure we'll all remember the time where he was talking about stomach in and chest out kind of situation, but also there was also an intervention from the side of what you eat, because we have a saying that you are what you eat. So Ms. Spellman, you are welcome to the Dr. Fundi channel.
Wow, Dr. Fundi, thank you so much for giving me this platform to really talk and share my insights on, as you say, a topic that is very close to my heart. All the people that know me knows the passion that I share with issues of health related to nutrition. So to provide me with this platform to share my insights is really humbling. Thank you. And also thank you to your viewers for dialing in and connecting in, and hopefully they'll learn one thing or two from this conversation. The other issue that I want to talk about is that I don't consider myself as a nutrition expert, but I consider myself as a healthcare professional that has a mandate and actually not just a mandate, an obligation to actually educate and motivate the community at large with regards to the things related to nutrition, because I've been put in a position where I've had to experience these things, and I could share them, especially at this critical time where it is dominated by fear and a lot of misconceptions. And we know that as human beings, when our environments change, fear becomes, dominant, because we cannot control things, and that's where these misconceptions are coming through, people trying to gain some sort of kind of control. And that's where healthcare professionals are very, very key in terms of correcting those misconceptions. And I think that's the role that I would like to play as a healthcare professional in this space. That's,
you said a mouthful. It's not the role you'd like to play, it's the role you've been playing ever since you qualified. Yeah, definitely, but obviously you continue doing so for greater good of humanity. And during times like this, it's so important to leverage all the skills that we have in South Africa to make sure that as we deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, but we don't also create other health challenges, elsewhere. And so that's why it's so important that we have this conversation today. Now, I'm just going to give you a free roll to just tell us, with the lockdown, this is now, I'm sure it's day 15, or I've lost count, day 15 or day 16, I'm not really sure, because they've added more. So we have to continue. Exactly, yeah. So, but in my opening statement, I mentioned that a number of people have really felt stressed by being cooped up, within their homes. Now, the first thing I need to just talk about, before the lockdown, we saw a lot of people who went and raided, the shops that sell food, stockpiling food, in case, they don't have a chance to get food. Now, my concern there is, food, even if it was good food, how food is stored, also is very important. There are nutrients in there and stuff like that. So can you just talk to us about just, the upside and the downside of stockpiling food?
Okay. All right, Dr. Fundi, as you said, when you asked me to come and talk about nutrition with your viewers here, my question was like, nutrition is very broad. What are the areas that are really going to be critical to address with people with regards to nutrition? And 3 areas actually came into mind for me.
Yes.
Number 1, the physiological impact of nutrition in our lives. Which really talks about the relationship, the nutrients that you're talking about, and how they, affect our bodily functions in terms of illness, in terms of energy, and all those kind of things. And I'm going to address that more with regards to the COVID impact and how that will be destabilized by it. And the second component that I thought about that will impact us during this COVID in terms of nutrition is the psychological impact of it, in terms of our emotions, in terms of our mind states, with relation to our eating behaviors and all of that. And thirdly, not least, the social nutritional impact that you're actually referring to with regards to the stockpiling, where people, the financial impact of it, the food security, because it talks to the food security, that people are going there and saying, flip, I'm going to be in an area, in a time where I might not be able to, you know, to get my food. So let me pile in all of that. And the other aspect in terms of social that I would like to talk about with regards to the COVID-19 is the hygiene, and both of them, the financial or the food insecurity part and the hygiene, is also, if you see, in terms of the social factors, it affects different types of LSM groups. And I would like to touch a little bit on that as well at a later stage. Just in terms of the, let's go back to the physiological part first, because I think it is the basic, is the foundation of all of this. Why do we eat? Why do we eat food? We know that food provides us with nutrients, and those nutrients are utilized by the body for various important functions, breathing. And the two areas that I would like to highlight here is, number one, the provision of energy. And we know that when we're sleeping, we're using energy. For our physical activities, we're using energy. So nutrition plays a very important role and is affected during this COVID, because if you look in terms of energy utilization, it goes down a bit because the physical part of it is not so prominent. We're sitting at home, we're not driving around, we're not stressed with all of that. So if you look at the nutritional principles, we talk about the energy input and the energy output. So whatever you put into your body must actually come out. But now with the situation that we're at, we are more of the energy input and we are less of the energy output. And we know that when that scale is in imbalance, it's going to end up to all those weight issues that we are referring to. That's one component that the COVID virus, infection is going to be coming with. The second one, the role, the physiological role of those nutrients, is the prevention of illness. You spoke about it. In terms of people with diabetes, people with all these underlying diseases. We know that mainly the issue for people around this COVID is about strengthening their immune systems. That's the key thing, because we want to fight this virus, and nutrition plays a very critical role in terms of that. And the third element in terms of that is people are using nutritional supplements. I mean, when this was happening, people were going to the stores. I mean, the vitamin aisles at Discam and Clicks were busy, empty even, because people are taking all different types of supplements. And I think that's an issue that I would like to address there in terms of where do supplements fit in all of this. So, as I said, those are the three areas in terms of physiological. Energy utilization, we've got to be balancing the energy that we're putting in. And if we look at the nutrients that we actually that are going to be very important for us in terms of that balance, is when we look at what we call the macronutrients, your carbohydrates, your fats, and your proteins. Those are the ones that we're going to have to really, really manage if we want to get that scale right. So you spoke about abantu with amagwinya, eating amagwinya, all those things. And the beverages that are out there as well, we really underestimate the impact of the how energy dense they are in terms of our
I'm not going to mention the name, but there's one very, very famous one. You know, I've been seeing a lot of that, and people are complaining that the kids are actually finishing that in no time. It comes in big 2-liter bottles.
Exactly. So all of those things, we've got to think about it in terms of that energy balance I was talking about. Are we getting more of this? And are we exercising to balance it? But we know the environment that we are at home is going to, that balance is not going to be good. So the second one I spoke about is the issue of immunity. I'd like to talk about the issue of the nutrients that are important to build our immune systems, especially around this time. We talk a lot about antioxidants. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about antioxidants. It's this big word, really. All it means is that it's the type of nutrients that are able to get into your body and fight all the what we call the free radicals, or basically the abnormal oxygen species that develop because of the environmental factor that we expose ourselves to, including the germs, including the virus that get into the body. So when you have a high enough amount of antioxidants in your body, you are able to fight the battle of all these infections and all these pollutants that are going to your body better, because they have a way of actually donating some very important electrons to that mix and make sure that you are at a better position to actually fight any invasions or pathogenic invasions that come into your body. And if you can look at the type of nutrients that play a role in terms of the antioxidant activity, it's vitamin C, which is why a lot of people are grabbing that vitamin C quite a lot. It plays a very important role as an antioxidant. And we talk about vitamin A as well, which is basically the one that you get from your eggs and all sorts of kind of things, and vitamin E that you get from your vegetable oils like your sunflower oil and canola oil. Those are the three main vitamins that are important in terms of building that antioxidant capacity in your body to be able to fight all these pollutants that can come to your body. And the other ones is selenium and copper. So just make sure that now when you go into supplement, you're looking for a supplement that is going to be high in those three antioxidants that I've mentioned.
Can you repeat? Can you just repeat their names? Can you just repeat their names?
It's vitamin A, it's vitamin A, it's vitamin C, it's vitamin E. Those are the vitamin part. And we also have minerals, which is the copper and the selenium. Those are the ones that also contribute to that. And really, if you eat a lot of your fruits and vegetables, they give you a whole lot of these antioxidants as well. They're very high in terms of the skin in your food. They're very rich in antioxidants as well. So make sure that to improve your immune system, to make sure it's stronger and you've got that enough supply of antioxidants to fight all these pollutants, you include that in your diet. And the other one is iron, the role of iron. You spoke about the underlying conditions that are in there. We know that when people are anemic, number one, there is a problem in terms of the oxygen being carried through your body. Because remember, iron plays, is a component of the hemoglobin in our blood. And if you look at COVID-19 as infection, we know that, those who are at high risk are those that are not going to end up being compromised with the transport oxygen from the lungs. So if you have an underlying anemic problem, meaning that lesser iron in your body, you are even going to be more compromised when you get to that critical stage of the COVID-19. So very important if you are anemic to ensure that your iron supply is up to scratch. If you don't, make sure that you get an iron supplement. I'm going to close off the issue around physiological part of things, unless people have questions around there. But the key thing is they make sure that you balance your energy input around this time. You don't want to be ending up with a weight issue after this COVID. And number two, make sure that you concentrate on your antioxidant intake. And if you're going to be supplementing, make sure you know what is in there. And I always say, read the nutritional labels in your nutritional supplements. A lot of people just buy things and they don't even know what is in it. If you're looking at an iron a supplement specifically, make sure that the amounts that are there are not higher than what you need in your body, because it could cause and pose a problem. Ask me, you can go into my platform and ask me and all these questions. I can answer you if you are a little bit confused in terms of reading those nutritional labels.
Before you move to the next one, I think it's psychological. Just at a lay person level, you've gone, into depth in terms of the nutrients, micronutrients. Lovely. Is there, now that we are less active, looking at these three broad groups, your carbohydrates, your proteins, and your fats, is there any rebalancing that we need to do broadly, because I know we normally talk about a plate. When you look at a plate, a quarter must be this, a quarter must be that, and whatever. So is there one of those quarters now that needs to be reduced and have more of another one?
Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about the macronutrients that you've actually mentioned. So when we look at nutrition, the nutrients that we get are divided into two. We've got what we call the macronutrients and those that we say micronutrients. Your macronutrients are those type of nutrients that are required by the body in very large amounts, like your carbohydrates, your fats, and the protein. And their sole role really is to provide you with that energy. So if you're going to be managing energy, you're going to be concentrating on those three, the carbohydrates and fats and proteins. So let's look at their roles of those three. Carbohydrates are easily broken down by the body. So they are the natural source of fueling. So if you're going to be wanting to increase your energy levels because you are more physically active, your carbohydrates are going to be the type of macronutrients that you're going to be using. When you look at the carbohydrates, there are two different types of them. We talk about the low GI carbohydrates and the high GI carbohydrates. The difference really being that with your low GI, they release that energy very slowly, meaning that they're going to sustain your energy throughout the day nicely. Whereas when you talk about your high GI, they actually give you an instant boost now, but they're out of your system very quickly. So if you're managing weight, it's very important to concentrate on your low GI carbohydrates if you're going to be eating. Those are the starchy sort of kind of foods that are not highly processed. If you're talking about bread, for example, you go for your soy and bran foods that are very
bread.
Just look at the color of your carbohydrates. The browner it is, the more of a low GI type of carbohydrate is going to be, the more it's going to give you energy on a stable sort of kind of a release. So once again, when you're managing weight, you don't want to be eating your high GI carbohydrates because you're going to eat them now. You're going to have that instant rush. I've got energy now, but in the next hour, you're going to have that slump and you're going to want to go back again. And that's what promotes overeating, basically. So make sure that you have your low GI, they're going to fill you up and you're going to be okay throughout the day. I hope I've answered your question around it.
Yes, okay, that's good. So basically, you're saying, take it easy on the high GI carbohydrates. Take it easy. Yes, take it easy on those because they give you high boost of energy. The other thing is the issue that at a certain level, they trigger insulin, right?
Exactly.
To try and reduce them. And when they are converted into various fat types like triglycerides and stuff, so you're not also, by eating the low GI ones, you are actually avoiding reaching a threshold that will call that insulin and all of that. So no, let me just add that, yeah.
Yes, especially important for the diabetic patients of yours as well. Very important to concentrate on those low GIs.
Yeah.
So I hope that has answered some questions around the physiological impact of nutrition around the COVID. If it's okay, I'll move now to the psychological impact.
Yes, you can go ahead.
Okay. I mean, interesting research has been coming up in terms of how nutrition is affected by our mindsets and also our eating behavior, how much are affected by our psychology. And there's this one particular book that I really like. I'm actually going to show it here. It's called The Psychology of C.J. Jung. If you're familiar, and I know you're familiar with, because there's one quote that you posted on your page around Jung. I love his philosophy. Yes. So if you look at, he discovered the theory of energy colors, of color energies. He talks about 4 color energies that each and every individual possesses. He talks about the cool blue energies that are more dominantly driven by that analytic sort of kind of traits. And then he talks about the fiery red energy that talks about those people who are drivers. They're always like ensuring that things are going on. And then he talks about the sunshine yellow color energy that talks to those people who are driven more by the external environment. And he talks about the cool green, the earth green colors. So there are these 4 colors, and he says every individual has these colors. If you look at your cool blues and your red yellows, he says they are really their thinking or their response to the environment is driven by the thinking mentality. Whereas when you talk about your sunshine yellows and your earth greens, they are more feelers. They are more driven by the feeling sort of kind of sensation. And why is this relevant in terms of nutrition? Is that once again, during this COVID-19, I think a lot of people are going to be utilizing more of their sunshine yellow and their earth green, because we are in our comfortable sort of kind of environments. There's no requirements for us to be thinking and be all of that. So once again, when you're in a comfortable environment, you relax about things, isn't it? And this is reflected in our eating patterns as well. You tend to eat those things that you don't normally eat. Like, for example, that's why you've been seeing a lot of people cooking all these comfort foods, like amagwinya, you know, what else can I mention around that? Muhodu and all those kind of things, because they are in their, you know, comfort zone, and their emotions are more, you know, in a relaxed mode, and they're not in a sort of judgmental sort of kind of space. So I like that. And when I read around it and I looked in terms of how it will affect our eating habits, I really felt that this book really talks to that. But anyway, I was digressing a bit around there. So eating comfort food, is it wrong to comfort eat? Definitely not. It helps, you know, in terms of making us, you know, it comforts us, as the word says. But the problem with it is overindulging to such an extent now, this becomes a habit, right?
Yes.
That's where the issue is. And what normally is associated with that, you see somebody, they'll sit there, flip, I want to eat this packet of chips. They'll eat that packet of chips and finish it on their own, and then go on and get that bottle of wine. Not just one glass, they'll finish that whole bottle of wine at one go. And what normally follows after that is the feeling of guilt, isn't it? And you're feeling guilty afterwards. And now it becomes a cycle of, you are eating, you feel guilty, and you eat to make yourself feel less guilty. So I normally refer to that as the eat, guilt, eat cycle. And that perpetuates now a foundation to an eating disorder if you're not controlled in terms of that. And I think this is one of the biggest areas that we're going to have a problem with in terms of the after effects of the COVID-19, because it's going to be very difficult to switch from that yellow energy, sunshine yellow mindset that is driven by emotions to our normal routine in terms of that. So we really need to watch our emotions and our mind states in terms of this, and know that you can have igunya lakho once in a while, but to have that on an ongoing basis is going to have impacts after your COVID. So, right, once again, guys, let's look at our things that influence our positive thinking. Let's think about what is it and how do we want to look and feel after this COVID period. Because if we don't control that, we're going to end up with a bigger issue. And we're going to have a lot of people that have gained weight, and really gaining weight, I'll look at it as an aesthetical element of things, but it affects a lot of people psychologically, and it affects all different areas of their lives at the end of the day. It's not just about gaining that weight. So once again, we don't want after this end up with some form of eating disorders and an obesity pandemic that we've been battling with as a society.
Yeah.
So just wanted to point out that psychological element of it. So what I can suggest that people do, and this is what I am, I'm also, you know, prone to this as a dietitian. I mean, comfort eating, no, everybody, you're in a comfortable environment. I always, what I've been doing for this COVID, actually, I planned it. My eating has been planned with my family from the word go, because I know that if we don't plan this, we're going to have all this food. From when you go to the shops, you need to understand what is it that I want to have. I want to stock in my kitchen. Only buy things that you know are going to contribute to this overall goal that you have. If you're going to start there from the shopping, start taking packet of chips, biscuits, and all sorts of kind of things, and you load them in your trolley, that's basically what you're saying at home. This is what we're going to be doing over this COVID period. But if you are stocking fruits and all of that, you're already laying a foundation on the stuff that you want to be eaten in your household. So it starts with the shopping when you go there. And then when you get home, that control, that knowing that we're going to keep our routine as a family. In the morning, we're going to have our breakfast. And what is it is going to be in that breakfast. You plan it accordingly. Lunchtime, let's search, guys, let's get lunch. This is what we're all having for dinner. It's all planned. The problem is that one person coming in when there's no plan, everybody's going to the fridge whenever, grabbing whatever, and then it becomes this big, big, big problem. So once again, the key thing there is having a strategy, eating strategy or eating plan during this COVID-19 period. And I think it worked well for me and my family in terms of that. So that's the psychological part of it. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything.
Yes, somebody who already had, a mental illness, bulimia, anorexia, which was maybe under control. Is there a likelihood that during this time, they may actually have worsening of those eating disorders because of all the stress around just being locked down, and also the stress relating to the negative news about deaths and everything? Yeah, is it possible?
Definitely. I've actually had people calling me with regards to those things, that they're getting into the depressive modes. And really the only comfort that they have is food. How can they control their eating? Because that's the only thing that provides them with comfort. So it definitely is going to exacerbate the underlying mental condition that they have. And it's even more critical for them to be more, having those strategies around it. How am I going to combat this? And I always say it's all in your mind. It starts with correcting your mind and keeping calm and understanding that everything is in control. I can control, even though the environment is changing around me, I have an inner strength to actually control my choices and what I need to do. And it's all about the mindset that you put yourself in, and trying to avoid the triggers. If you know that when each time you watch TV and you hear about this COVID and the death, minimize going into those platforms, because they're going to get you out of control. And all those, it's all about controlling your mindset and having that positive mindset to things, and concentrate on things that you can do instead that can actually build up that.
Okay, so if you're one of those people now, maybe there's no clear strategy at home, on how to manage, food, like you just suggested now. And so people just go in and snack and snack and snack. What kind of snacks should people be having? Because snacking will happen because people have got nothing to do. So any advice around the kind of snacks that should be available at home that are not going to worsen, challenges with the boredom and the stress and everything that's happening?
Yeah, as I highlighted earlier, Dr. Fundi, is that it starts at the retail store. Yeah, what you get in there. So you got to control it from there and look there for things like I always believe in fruit as a snack. Yeah. And, loading a lot of fruits. I know I've got a child at home that is very into, she loves her chips. I mean, like any other child and all of that. And for me to minimize her eating all the stuff, I put a lot of fruit out there. You find fruit everywhere. So if somebody has that mindset flip, I need to eat something. People eat what is available. And over time, if they go there and you've got that fruit bowl that's sitting in your dining room set, and they open the cupboard and there are no chips and there are no all those kind of things, they have no choice. They're going to start snacking on the fruit that is available. So I suggest that have a lot of fruit supply. I mean, oranges, there's a lot of variety in the house. Just have a lot of variety so that there's no food fatigue in terms of having the same sort of kind of things. And also things like your popcorn. Just buy popcorn, and when you're watching those DVDs and all of that, don't necessarily buy the processed ones. Buy your raw popcorns from the shop. You are at home now. You have time to actually make them yourself from the stove, because remember, these ones that are already prepared in the pre-packages, they're highly processed. So once again, they'll have problems. So just buy the normal milli, the milli popcorns, and pop them at home in your stove, and use that as a snack when you're watching TV and you feel that need to actually snack. And I always suggest things like dried fruits as well.
Yeah.
Stock a lot of those. Stock a lot of nuts as well. In home as a snacking. So once again, don't go all gaga on the nuts because they're very calorie heavy, especially your cashew nuts that are nice. Just make sure that once again it is minimized. Those are the type of snacks that I think they're healthy. They contribute nutritionally when you are at home instead of
Yeah, and in terms of beverages, just before you go to the next one, in terms of beverages, just some basic advice there. You know, I mean, people in South Africa, they are into energy drinks and, sugary, types of drinks, others. So at this point, with low need for energy use, what kind of beverages that should people be going for, which again starts during shopping?
Yes. And once again, for me, the best thirst quencher is water.
Yeah.
And that's number one. And try to find interesting ways of making that water. I know, for example, I'm not very, very good at drinking water. I have to mentally think, that where do I strategically put my water bottle so that I don't forget to drink water. So water is the basis of everything to thirst quench. But we know that we have, all the sodas. We've got our Oros that we love, and I stock. But once again, what I like about, if you were to compare your sodas to your Oros, that we know our kids love so much, and you can't tell your kids not to have Oros, right? But the dilution of that Oros. What I do at my house, because my daughter also loves Oros quite a lot, I do buy the lemon flavored one. And I also have lemons. I buy lots of lemons. So what I do, I put a little bit of that Oros, and I also cut some lemons and put it and ice it. So it's a very nice refresher, and it's not as boring as the water is, but at least it tests the quench, and the kids have that effect like, oh, I am having my Oros afterwards. You don't totally depriving them of that. And for me, sodas, I am very, really strict about sodas. You shouldn't even be buying the sodas and getting them into your house. So I cannot even say, and try to be nice there, that maybe have one, or I've got a very big issue with the sodas being stocked in the house, especially with the kids in there.
But nowadays, nowadays you've got the zero sugar ones. Do you still have the same view with the 0 calorie ones?
You know what, I do, but I always say, with all these low fat, zero, whatever things that I have, manufacturers are adding things in those kind of food. Like, for example, if you take Coke, yes, they'll reduce the actual sugar content that is natural, but they'll replace it with a sweetener. And for me, it poses even more of a problem in terms of the body, recognizing all these additives that we put in our sugar, in our food. But if your goal is to reduce the energy consumption, yes, they play a role. But long term, I think the addition of the additives into it might cause problems in the long run. So it's a short-term sort of kind of solution. But for me, is that changing that habit and telling yourself that I want to get off into, I don't want to be part of that soda sort of kind of vibe. And the other issue that I wanted to address with regards to beverages is that people, when they look at fruit juices, they see like it's fruit, it's healthy. But we know that with our fruit juices, they are laden with sugar into it. So once again, if you're going to be drinking your fruit juices, make sure that you pour half of it and then dilute it with water to actually decrease that energy content of them.
Yeah.
When you talk about our wines as well, I know ladies would like to wind down and drink our wine. Also, our wines are very energy laden. Not that you should not drink your wine, but once again, have that one glass. If it's going to be wine, try your red wine. Because red wine at least has health benefits in terms of your heart and all of that, but it must not be an everyday one bottle, sort of kind of an issue. Just one glass to wind things down and be okay.
Lovely.
That's basically not about the beverages.
You can move on to the next one.
Then we can move on to the social impact of nutrition, especially around this COVID. As I mentioned, that when we're talking, the two areas that I want to concentrate on is the financial impact of it related to food security. And the second one I wanted to concentrate on is the hygiene around the food.
You mentioned something about the LSMs as well.
Yes, I was also going to touch. When you look at all these two parameters that I'm the financial or the security part and the hygiene part, we know those will be affected by the social classes. I have not been looking at time. How are we doing?
We have 20 minutes to go.
Okay. So we look at the social classes as well. If you look at your lower LSM group, we saw when the pre-lockdown announcement was made, we had a lot of people rushing into the shops. But look at the type of people who were there. It's your higher LSM group that was actually there, stockpiling and all those sort of kind of things. And the question is, what drives that?
Yes.
What has been driving that? We know that once again, it's driven by people wanting to be, have that food security, at home. I don't want to find myself being locked down at home without food. And once again, it shows the impact of, of nutrition in our social, as a breadwinner, for example, your key thing is I need to provide food for my family, right?
Yes.
So we work, if you think about it, all our workings and all the things that we do as breadwinners is centered around, I don't want my family to be hungry. So we can see that nutrition is embedded in our cultures, is embedded in all of that. And whether you're in the higher LSM group or in the lower LSM group, but we are affected by the issue of food security. So we saw the higher LSM group going into the shops, stocking up. But if you look at the lower LSM, the financial implications of all of this meant that they were not there to get all of this. And that now exposes, once again, the disparities that we have in our society, even when it comes to issues of nutrition, that we need to be mindful of. So what role do we need to play as a society in these different classes? That means that you as a person who has been blessed or enough to be in that higher social class and you are able to have access to that, make sure that those who are less fortunate, you actually provide for them. And I think during this period of COVID, it's very important that we look out for those who are less fortunate in terms of that financial sort of kind of classes. If you have a helper at home, make sure that that helper has enough to actually provide. They have that food security that is also important for you, covered during this place. Make sure that you buy them some food to take home if they're going home and all sorts of kind of things. Your gardener and all those sort of kind of people need to actually be taken care of because also food security is an issue for them. So I just wanted to highlight that part in terms of the financial part of the social factors and how it affects social, food security for all of us.
Yeah. I just want to mention something I, earlier today I was listening to a radio station and they had somebody who was talking about this thing. And this was more around the fact that during this period of lockdown, the people in the suburbs, in Bryanston, like where I stay, can go out and go to Woolies, get fresh stuff and all of that. And most probably we stockpiled as well before the whole thing. But for the people who are in the townships and maybe the informal settlements, they didn't have that. And they normally use spaza shops to do their grocery. And so there's not much of money that they need to use for transport to get the food. But now the spaza shops are generally, even though they've just been included that they can open, but I don't think they are as well stocked, So the net effect then being that these people from the lower LSMs have to actually go to supermarkets and bigger malls and whatever to try and get food, even using the little that they have, and so that's been one of the issues that I've just picked up that is actually a problem. I'm glad though that our president mentioned that there is some social support programs, or there are some social support programs to try and deal with these challenges amongst those, in those kind of communities. However, there's also the issue of social solidarity, and I mean, what you mentioned now, us looking out for those who are less fortunate, and thinking and seeing how to support that, and anyway, it's also good for our, for our spirits, for our soul, to actually share. At this point, doing something, to help others, even though you have your own stresses, what they normally call, positive distraction, Yeah, but anyway, so yeah, did you have anything more to say around the social aspect? Because I want to ask a question, yeah.
Yeah, the last one was that of hygiene.
Yes.
That is, very important when it comes to food. We know that, first of all, I would like to highlight that we know that COVID-19 is not a foodborne disease, it's an airborne disease. So, but being that, we still know that hygiene, the type of food that we put in our bodies, needs to also be in a hygienic state to ensure that you don't actually exacerbate what is already the damage that has already been done by the COVID being an airborne disease. So what measures do we have to concentrate on as a community? Once again, it starts off with the food that you're buying and bringing at home. Once again, making sure that before you prepare that food, you wash your hands. Very important. Wash your hands, and also wash, when you're eating that food, wash it before you, because you could be carrying some germs that are around them. Make sure that you wash that food before you eat it. Very critical at this stage. During this period. And also the meat. The meat that we're going to be cooking, make sure that you wash it before you cook it, and don't undercook it, especially your chicken and your fish, because they carry salmonella that can actually resurface if it's not cooked properly, and it could actually exacerbate the COVID infections if you already have. So very important to take care of those and sanitize. And the areas where you're cooking, make sure that is clean all the time. And it's very important, as I said, this is not about the COVID, it's not the nutrition world. I mean, if the sanitation around it is not really going to stop you from having COVID, but it will minimize the impact should you have very wanted to.
And not use the same knife, and not use the same knife for different types of foods.
Yeah.
The stuff that we used to talk about during listeriosis, and also those, we like to keep food into the fridge, food that was already cooked, and then we put it in some scarf tin, and we put it in the fridge. Yeah.
I was actually going to get into the fridge part in terms of once again, when you're defrosting your food, very important not to defrost it outside. I know what you do, take that chicken and put it in the sink the whole day to defrost. That's actually not good. You've got to, if you know that it comes with that planning I was talking about, what am I cooking? So a day before, if you know that you're going to be cooking chicken, put that chicken out of the freezer and put it in the fridge side so that it defrosts there. Because when you're taking it out of the fridge to defrost, you are actually allowing, once again, some germs to manifest there. And make sure that if you've cooked food and you've got leftover food, make sure that it cools down before you actually put it in the fridge. Because when it's there and it's hot, it actually also improves the microorganism sort of kind of
the growth of those years.
Yes, so those are the key things that I would just like to highlight in terms of hygiene, and making sure that the cooking environment is hygienic and is sanitized. Make sure that you don't undercook food. Make sure that you, as a person who's preparing food, you are not, in an unhygienic state, because it can affect all of us. And just to clarify once again, COVID is not a foodborne disease, it's an airborne disease. But by making sure that your food is hygiene, you are actually ensuring that you are not putting yourself or your family at high risk. When you if you contract the virus. And that's all that I wanted to highlight?
No. I still have to ask you a few things.
Okay.
Right. You know, maybe 20 years ago, you know, when I was doing my studies in family medicine, we used to talk about biopsychosocial approach to dealing with patients. So you consider what needs to be done physically as a doctor, consider, you know, any psychological implications, and also the social. But recently, when we look at the holistic approach, now it's biopsychosocial spiritual, all right? The spiritual component to make the whole. So if I look at the approach you followed, the spiritual component around this has not been addressed. And I'm almost challenging you to say it is we are spiritual beings. And so
Definitely.
to give the whole, we also need to attend to that part as well. Your comment on that?
On the spiritual side, yes.
Remember, we talked psychology and food. So I'm saying the area around, because, you know, spirituality and food may need to be looked at. All right?
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't have any literature. I don't have any literature around that specifically on issues of nutrition. But I was just saying the accepted approach now on when we talk holistic approach is look also on matters on spirituality, either as a cause or as a perpetuator, or, you know, but, you know, so that one understands the broader thinking there. But let's leave it for now, unless you wanted to say something.
No, definitely an area of interest. I mean, there's a lot of research that needs to be done there because we are spiritual beings. So in whatever that's affecting as human beings, we also lean on to the spiritual world as well
and some of the religions actually even specify what foods to be eaten and what foods not to be eaten, you know. And all of that. So that, you know, area is an area, I mean, again, we are largely in South Africa, I mean, majority is Black Africans, and we've got certain spiritual things, you know, especially those who practice African spirituality, you know, but generally, even if you are not looking at that, almost all the other ones, whether you're looking at Christianity or Islam or, you know, or even Hindu, there's issues that have to do with food there. So that's why I just thought, you know, let me just throw it in as something that maybe you must look at so that next time I can call you, we talk about that. All right.
You've actually given me a homework now and you've challenged me. So that's going to be my homework during this COVID time to actually research around that because, yeah, it's one area that has been neglected really. So I promise you, I'm giving you that promise that I will look into it and the literature that is in there that has been done.
All right, lovely. As we wrap up, let's talk about your book. You know, for me, you spent a lot of time putting your energy writing a book, and from the title, I get a sense that you felt that somehow up until that point, people, when they talk matters of nutrition, they were talking above people's heads. There were a lot of myths, a lot of misconceptions. And so you decided to call your book Nutrition Demystified. Just talk to us in the last 5 minutes we have.
Okay. So the concept of this book for me came from when I was really very young and at home. I saw like my relatives around, you know, dying from diabetes specifically. So there was a lot of, you know, talk around, you know, for example, my grandfather had diabetes and he died from diabetes. And I grew up around my grandfather, and we know that the way that we need to be, you know, making sure that our grandfather is okay is to make sure that he does not eat sugar and all of that. And we're all, you know, centered around this. And then later on, when I got this interest in nutrition and started studying around it, I realized that that was actually a misconception. We centered all the care around my grandfather, avoiding, oh, as long as we don't put sugar in his tea and all of that. We did not understand the concept of the low GI, carbohydrates, and all sorts of kind of things. So he really died a miserable sort of kind of death where he could not eat the things that were important for him. Somehow that sparked for me that interest in nutrition, that flip. Nutrition can actually be a medicine, and it also can be a poison in terms of that. That's what sparked my interest in nutrition in general. And the book itself came in because I realized that it's not only my family that is affected by that, it's the community in general. There's a lot of all these misconceptions that are out there. And there are a whole lot of experts that are out there. And I would sit around, people come in and say, no, my gym instructor told me to eat this and this and this, and I'll be listening to this and it's like, this is wrong information. Why would even a person, start giving advice with things related to nutrition when they don't have that? So that's what sparked for me the interest in writing something from the healthcare professional side of things to say, guys, you know what? Here's the information that has been researched, that is not biased, that is not one-sided, that is backed up by science. So I use that platform to demystify all these myths that you can imagine. If there's fight, I mean, there's been a whole lot of debate among healthcare professionals around the Benton diet, very conflicting sort of kind of, mindsets within the healthcare professional space. Can you imagine a layman person who's at home, who's looking at this, should I bench, should I not? Because there's divided opinions from the healthcare professionals. So this book is just there to demystify all those facts, to know the basics. I mean, I go and I use the language that is so consumer friendly, where people can actually understand. When I'm talking about the nutrient, I make analogies there that are very, user friendly for a person out there. So that's where the book came from. And yeah, I mean, we talk about all these big things, antioxidants, but how are you going to talk about antioxidants when you don't know what a carbohydrate is, the difference between a carbohydrate and protein? So that's what this book is addressing. Know the basics of nutrition so that you are more informed to make better decisions for yourself. Even when you are consulting with someone, you can't, with that background knowledge. So you are a participant in your conversation around your health or nutrition rather than somebody telling you. So you can also challenge, for example, when that gym instructor comes in and says, do this, and you're like, no, but how is this going to affect ABC? Because you come from there. And that's what this book is all about, giving those basics.
So where is it available?
This book is available in different many platforms. I supply it as well. You can go into my page and I can send
You can mention the name of your page.
There?
You can mention the name of your page.
Or it's the Wellbeing Academy. It's Wellbeing Academies here on the Facebook platform. Just go to the Wellbeing Academy and then you find all the details around the book. But you can also get it from Exclusive Books, but it's not on order. That you just ask them, you want this book, they'll order it for you. You can also get it from Scoops in for those who are in the Joburg area. Scoops in Monte Cassino, it's there, it's stocked. You can also go to my publisher's site, which is Porcupine Press. They can also provide you with the book. But I will post all those on the Wellbeing Academy, all those details.
There's something you mentioned earlier this year. All right, can you show it again?
Yeah, it looks like this.
Okay, right. So there's something you mentioned that in writing your book, you also concentrated on the foods that are easily available in our homes. You're not just talking about stuff that we can only get at Woolies, but I mean, you tried to also look at where we are in South Africa and what's easily available to the majority of people.
In terms of that, remember this book is concentrating more on the principles behind, and there's been a request from people who have had the book that we want the practical side of things now, where you talk about, maybe a recipe book or all sorts of kind of things. And that's what I am working on in the background. So this is just laying the foundation with this one. And then once you know the foundation, then it's the practical element that I'm going to be looking at in the future.
All right. No, I think at this point I need to thank you, Sis Zikona. It was such an interesting, hour to hear and listen to somebody. Your passion just oozes through, about the subject, of nutrition. And it made me remember, there's something that's often quoted that food is the most abused anxiety drug, and exercise is the most underutilized antidepressant. So, but also, so talking nutrition, talking food, we are actually, assisting people to manage their anxieties. So, and I think you've managed to empower people with a lot of relevant information so that they can be able to develop those nutritional strategies for the next 20 days of lockdown, so that they are not in a much more worse position than compared to where they are now. So I thank you for your time. I thank you for your professionalism. I thank you for the passion. And I also want to thank everybody who joined us through the various platforms. We will keep on looking and inviting people who, are excelling in their areas of professional expertise. So thank you very much. We hope to bring Zikona at some point in the near future. Goodbye to everybody.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bye to everyone.
All right, thank you very much.
I hope you've learned one thing or two.
Definitely, we have been empowered, and my take home is that nutritional strategy for the house.
Thank you. I'm glad. Thank you.
All right, thank you.